This video is for the train body part file. So we're going to start this by a 2D sketch on the YZ plane. So you can see that right down here. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to create a circle. And this circle, it's going to be a little bit hard to tell what it's for at first, but it's for this arc right here. And the center point of our circle is this point. So I'm going to place my circle in. And on our paper, we have the radius, not the diameter. So I'm going to type in this number that I have right here. So 2.35, and then I'm going to put times 2. So make sure you multiply it by 2 because you have radius and we want a diameter. So right now it's off my screen. So pressing home on my keyboard. And now I'm going to add in, I'm going to do this with some lines. So I'm going to place a line here, and I'm going to make sure it connects. I'm going to place my other line here, and make sure it connects. So now I'm going to add in my dimensions. So this bottom dimension here is going across the very bottom. As I can see on this angle, it's not shown. But I know this is a mess of dimensions and it's a little bit hard to read. But we're going right down here, and then we follow this one also down, and we can see that is 2 inches. So 2 inches. Alright, and now we're going to get this bottom edge to this center point. And that dimension we can see on the back. That is 0.375. And then we're going to see that we still have 2 green lines. We don't want the green lines. So we're going to click here, and pull it down. And now we got both of our green lines turned blue, but we still need to put our dimension. And we can see from our center point over, I know it's on the other side over there, but 2 divided by 2 is 1, so it's the same. So we have 1 inch. Alright, so right now we kind of have a little bit of a mess of everything there. Now we can read everything. And one thing we still need to do that I like to do on here is trim this up. I like to do this personally because sometimes it makes extruding later on a little bit easier. So just trim that up, and now we can finish. And now we extrude. Alright, so the depth of this, let's see, not on that view, it is, alright, so going from this edge, go down, oh, there's my number, and if you need to see it larger, it's right here, so 1.75. Alright, so that's my first chunk of dimensions, going to my next piece. So I'm going to start a 2D sketch on this surface, so where it says right over here. And I'm going to use project geometry and my rectangle tool. So I'm going to click on here and click over to here. So the dimension for this bottom edge is already pre-dimensioned for us. We don't need to put that in because I clicked on this corner and this corner. So right now I should have 3 blue lines and 1 green. Now I'm going to click on my green line and the blue line opposite that line. And the dimension for this, if we look in, I know, our mess of dimensions, from this corner, go over, we have 0.88. So if you need to see it larger, 0.88. Alright, so we're drawing this front face. And now I'm going to add in a circle. I know it's not lined up perfectly in the center. That's fine. And now, let's see, our dimension for this, on our paper, we have another radius, which is not exactly what we want. So our dimension for this is going to be 0.75, and then again times 2, because I have a diameter and I want to put it in as, or sorry, I have a radius and I want to put it in as a diameter. Alright, so right now it's fully green. We need to lock it in place. So I'm going to go from the edge to the center point and pull it down. And as we look here for the center point of our circle, or on this it looks like an arc, if we go down, we have 1 inch. Alright, again, going from the very bottom to the center point and moving over. You can see now that it's fully dimensioned, locked in place, but we still need to add in that dimension properly. We can look over here at our center point, move over, and we can see that it is 1.38. So this is now fully dimensioned, and we can finish and extrude our two shapes. You gotta click on both shapes. So for this one, I know I have a little equation down here, but the reason for that is the entire length of our part is 5.5 inches, but we already have this little piece in the back. So I'm going to type it in as 5.5 inches minus this back piece, which is 1.75. So right now we kind of have the base of our object. So we're starting to see the train come together. So our next portion, so we're going to start a sketch right here. And we're going to do this little cutout piece. Alright, and project geometry. And I'm going to put a rectangle in. So I'm going to make sure the first point is connected over here. And I'm going to place it in. The next thing I'm going to do is put in a center point for my arc. Place it here. Place the other piece there. So the reason why I didn't put the dimensions in yet is because it's a little bit easier to put them in after the fact, because I'm going to be using this center point to go to the very bottom. Because if we look at our drawing over here, that's what it's referencing. So I need to put both of them in before I can start finalizing our dimensions. So that dimension is 1.75. Then we have a radius. That radius, if we look here, is 0.5. And for our rectangle, that last dimension that we need to add in, if we look right here, is 1/4 of an inch, so 0.25. Alright, and one thing that I'm going to do to clean this up a little bit is take this one line and turn it into a construction line. What that'll do is take this entire piece and kind of make it into one, so when we try to extrude, instead of having to do multiple clicks, it is just one piece. So now we're going to extrude this piece. You can see that it's going out and adding material. I don't want that. I want to do cut, and then I'm going to change the distance to all. So the reason for that is it cuts through the entire thing. I know I could have left it how it was a 4 because it did cut through all of it, but I like to change it all just in case I realize I messed up a dimension and then I need to go back and fix it. So click OK. Alright, so now we have our fillet. So for our fillet, I know it says round all edges, so we can click on round all edges, but I also like the look of it when I fillet all the edges too. So I'm going to leave that to you if you want to do that or not. It is not necessary, but personally I think it gives it a little bit more of a polished look. So the dimension we need to add in, if we look at our note over here, is 0.1. So the default is 0.125, so we need to get rid of some of those extra numbers. And make sure if you do rounds and fillets, the fillet has the same dimension. And then just click OK. So our train's kind of looking a little bit more like our actual train. And I know on this image it doesn't have all these rounded edges. The reason why it doesn't have all the rounded edges in this image is just to make it a lot easier to read where the dimensions are coming from. And the reason why we're doing the rounded edges and the fillets right now is because when we drill the holes in for the wheels and the cow catcher and the other components, we're going to need to unselect all of those if we do the fillet feature later. So it's a lot easier to do it now when we can use the fillet all and round all boxes instead of having to click on all of them manually. Alright, so the next piece I'm going to do is go to the back, start a 2D sketch, and we can see that point we were using earlier. So what I'm going to do now is actually going to take a point and place it directly on top. So I know it basically just kind of went invisible right now, but there is a point there, so I'm going to try to highlight it. You may or may not be able to see the little highlight that I'm doing. Alright, so finish sketch. So that one we constrained directly to that. That's why I'm not giving you the dimensions for it. It's the exact same starting point that we did for the beginning of the piece. Now I'm going to use the hole tool. And if you've been using this hole tool recently, it'll pull in all of your defaults from whatever you just did. So this was from the stack when I did it earlier, so I need to undo all this. So I need a simple hole. I need the seat to be none. I still need a distance. And let's see, it is going the correct way. Flat point instead of a point. Alright, so now I'm ready to actually put in my dimensions. So my diameter, which is this piece right here, if we look on this, all I did is take this little bit and kind of made it larger for you. So it's 1/4 inch for the diameter, and the depth is 1/2 inch. So that is it for that side. So the next piece is we're going to start our sketch on this side. I'm going to just orient it the same way that we have in the drawing, just so you have a better idea of what I'm talking about for the dimensions. So I'm going to place in 2 points. Right now I'm just going to place them in. Make sure you don't get any of those dotted lines, because you don't want it to be accidentally locked into something. And these 2 points are going to be used for the hole tool later on. So I'm going to use my dimension tool. I'm going to go from here to the very bottom, not to this edge right here, the very, very bottom, and then click. So if we look over here, we can see that that is 1/2 inch. And these are going to be at the same height, so I'm going to do the other one at the exact same time. Remember again, very, very bottom. 1/2 inch. And now we're working our dimensions from this back edge. So I'm going to click on my back edge and this point over here. And looking at the drawing, it is 1 inch. Alright, so that just turned blue, so I know it's fully constrained. Now I'm going to do the next one, again from the back edge. Looking at our dimensions, it is 4.5 inches. Alright, now finish sketch. And hole tool. And because we have those points and only one sketch, if you have multiple sketches, it won't be able to find it. And you need to click on the actual points and then I'll fix it. So for this one, I want it, let's see, to be threaded. So tapped. Alright, and, oh, the default happens to be what we want for most of this. So if you look at the designation, I have it written down the exact same way that it is on the paper, and the designation just happens to be the same unless you were playing around with it and changing some settings. The distance I want to be through all. And here's something that sometimes gets missed. So thread depth. For this, I want it to go all the way through. So for this one, let's see. I guess in this version we're going to have to type it in manually. In a different version, oh, there's the button. Full depth. Okay, so it's a little checkbox. So if you do miss the checkbox and have to type this in, it's going to be 2 inches to get the thread all the way through. But here is our lovely checkbox. So then if we do have to change dimension later on, it's still going to be full depth no matter what. So click OK. Alright, we are almost there. So now we are going to have to create a sketch on here. The problem is it is a curved surface and the 2D sketch will not work there. So we're going to create a plane. Alright, so I'm going to click on the curved surface first, and then this is one of those things where you just got to move the mouse until it's exactly where you want it to be. So it's taking up this bottom piece and kind of making it parallel. And 2D sketch, and we need to click on the edge. If you click on it, you click through it. If you click on the edge, well, now we clicked on our new work plane. So I'm going to add in a point And again, trying not to lock it on anything. And I'm going to go from this very bottom to our point. And I can see right here that it is 0.88. And it is also right in the center. So I'm going to go from the edge. Remember, you want to go from the very edge of the train. Click on our dot, or our point. Click over, and that is going to be 1 inch. Alright, so finish. Okay, so our hole is going to be a simple hole. It's going to have a termination. And I can see that it's trying to come out of the part, so I'm going to flip it. And let's see, we have a diameter of, oh, I have a typo. Ignore that extra 0. Okay, so we have a typo there, and it should be 0.5. And the other one is going to be 1/4 of an inch. Then click OK. Alright, so the next part is going to be a little bit confusing. And oh, before we do that, just to clean this up, on your work plane 1, you can right click and then visibility. Don't delete it, because if you delete it, it'll try to delete the hole that you just placed in. So instead, we're just going to make it invisible. Okay, so now for the hard part. We are going to start a 2D sketch on this front end of what the user would call the front of our train, and for mine it's called the right. I'm going to place in 3 points. And again, try and make sure I don't accidentally link them to anything. I know they're just kind of thrown in all over the place. So I try to put these so they line up, so you can kind of see what I'm doing. But we have our first hole, and we're going to go from the very bottom over. So if we look at this, it is, and let me just make the cursor a little bit bigger. There we go, paint can. Alright, so we have 0.125. Alright, and then from our edge down, so that's another one that's a little bit hard to see, it is 0.375. So our first one now is fully constrained. So for our next one, we're going to go from the point, bottom, over. If we're looking at our drawing, we can see our number. So this one is 0.625. And again, our edge, point, down. And this one's right in the center. So it's 1 inch. And our point, the bottom, over. And it happens to be the same height as our first one. So it's 0.125. And our last dimension for this little piece, or part of it, right here, it is 1.625. Alright, now I can finish sketch and use our hole tool. Need to flip it the other way. Oh, now it went away. Okay, so our termination, there it goes. Our termination is going to be, let's see, 0.125. And if you're looking at the drawing, it's right here. And it also has a flat bottom. I guess I forgot to put that little icon in there. But just make sure the bottom for the drill point is flat. And then for our diameter, it happens to actually be the same number. So I have 0.125. Alright, so that is our train. So let's just do a double check to make sure we have all the holes drilled in. Okay, so we have the one on the back, the sides, one on the top, and our front. Okay, so we have all the holes drilled in. So that is the part.